This Select Increments Neo-Pod is for those of you that have a 2007 to 2018 four-door JK that are looking for a way to add a subwoofer if you don't have one from the factory and you want something that is going to be a little bit stealthy and not take a lot of your cargo space up in your Jeep, because let's face it, even the four doors don't have that much room inside. This system is going to be a 2 out of 3 wrench installation. Even though it does come with everything, there's going to be a little bit of wiring. Some of it is just plug and play. Others you do have to tap into some wires. That is a little bit going to depend on your existing system as well. So there's going to be a little bit of work here. We're going to show you how to get this installed in just a minute. This system is going to come with everything you need, all the wiring, all the instructions to get a 8-inch sub mounted in this box specifically formed to fit underneath the passenger seat of your JK. So self-contained, very, very nice unit that comes with everything that you need perfectly matched. And that's what's really important about a system like this. You can buy just the box. You can buy just the box and the sub, but this system, box, sub, amp, and all of the wiring and everything is matched by the professional. So if you're somebody who doesn't really have a full firm grasp of car audio and exactly what you need to consider when putting different components together, all of that work is already done for you. This is going to be a very simple system because you don't have to do all of that research. Again, if you are into that, you can buy just this box if you want something that's a little bit stealthy, stuff your own components in there and make that work. So a system like this, because all of that legwork has been done, because all of the research has been done, everything is matched together and paired perfectly, and you're getting a box that is designed specifically for your vehicle, a nice stealthy style mounting box, this is gonna be a little bit more expensive than if you were to just purchase individual components. Again, a lot of what you're paying for is this box, but you're also getting some very high quality speaker components. So this is going to be a little bit on the pricey side. If you are looking for a stealthy box, you want high quality components, you don't want to have to piece something together yourself, this is going to be a great choice. So I already talked about a couple of the components that are included in this kit. The big one is right here. You have your sealed sub box, and that is molded and designed to fit directly underneath the passenger seat of your four-door JK. But what's very important is how this sub and this box were designed to work together. Again, this is a sealed box. The volume of the box is matched for the recommended volume of this 8-inch Kicker sub. So they're gonna work really well together. And that is one of the things that you need to consider when you're doing a car audio installation. And again, that legwork is done for you. Also, the 8-inch Kicker sub is matched to this 300-watt amp. So you don't have to worry about resistance, ohms, you don't have to worry about wattage outputs. All of that research, all of that matching is taken care of for you. Speaking of which, this is going to be a 2 ohm sub, and as I said, over here you have a 300-watt amplifier to power that. So you have all of the components that are necessary, and all of them are matched very well to give you a very high quality of sound output. You're also going to have all of your wiring that is going to be necessary. So depending on whether you have an aftermarket system in your Jeep, you have a factory system, you have a factory system with an existing sub, you're gonna have to wire this up a little bit differently, but you are going to have everything you need. So even if you don't have a sub, you just need to tap into a existing channel and have that be the output that goes into the amp and then into the sub. They give you the vampire clips, they give you the RCA ends, they give you everything that you're going to need to get everything hooked up in your Jeep. And again, I keep saying it, but all of the legwork, all the research is done to make sure all this stuff matches and you're not just spending money on something that's not going to sound good because this doesn't match up with that. All of that is already done for you, and that's part of what you're paying for in a kit like this. This system comes in at just shy of $500. Now you could buy an amp, a sub, the wiring harness, and a box that isn't designed to fit specifically underneath the passenger seat of your Jeep for less than that, but then you're taking up room in that cargo area. For a stealthy box that's designed specifically for your JK that is stuffed with perfectly matched high quality components, I don't think $500 is that bad of a price. Again, if you are really into car audio, you could piece something together, you could make something work for less money, and heck, it might even sound better. But if you don't have a firm grasp of car audio, you don't want to spend the hours researching what works well together, and you want a box that's going to be nice and stealthy, this is a self-contained kit that's priced pretty fairly for everything that you're going to get. Now I'll have a member of the install team show you how you get this installed in your JK.
Now this installation does not require you to remove your seats, however we did remove them just so you can get a better idea how it looks underneath there. First thing we're going to do is we're going to remove this panel and these 2 push pins so we can get our speaker wires. So now that we've removed this panel and we've exposed the wires, we're going to tap into the wires for the soundbar. Now we have 2 green wires and we have 2 gray wires. Those are for the left and the rear. So we're going to take our supplied wire and we're going to wind up tapping into those wires. So now we're ready to splice into the soundbar wires. So we're going to use our supplied length of wire, we're going to cut that in half, and then we'll use our provided blue locking tabs to splice into that. So we're going to go ahead, take this piece, we'll cut that in half, bring these wires back. We're going to separate these wires some. We're going to start with the gray wires. The gray wires are for the left rear soundbar speaker. Now we have a light green stripe, which is the positive, and we have a dark green stripe, which is the negative. So we're going to wire them accordingly. So we're going to take our little vampire blue clips and we'll get those installed. So we're going to go ahead and slide our wire into the back until it stops at the end. And then we're going to wrap it around our wire like this, and then we'll push that pin down and that'll splice into both wires. Then you can take this, wrap that around, and that'll clamp that shut. Next we're going to do the negative side, which has the dark green stripe on it. Same thing goes for that. So next we're going to wire up for the right rear speaker. Now these are the 2 green wires. The light green stripe is going to be for the positive. So we're going to start with that and we'll attach that to our blue wire. So we're going to insert our wire into the clip. We're going to slide it into our clip until it bottoms out. Then we'll clamp it over our wire and then we'll squeeze the tab down. Then we can flip the lock and lock it in place. So now the other green wire has a gray stripe on it, that's for the negative. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to slide our lock on until it bottoms out. And then we're going to tap into that wire. So now that we have our new wires tapped into our soundbar wires, we're going to label which side they are since there is a left and a right. Then we're going to run them under the carpet over the driver's side seat where we're going to attach them to our amp. So we're going to take a piece of tape, attach it like that, and then we'll just write which side it's for. So we have this one hooked up to the gray wires, which is the left side rear speaker. So we're going to begin by pulling our carpet back. So we can clear a path for these wires to run. We're going to swing our wires around. We can just run these all the way across. And then we can pop these out right here. And then get ready to wire them up to the amp. So the next step is to attach the ground wire from the body to the amp. So we have our Phillips head screwdriver, 10mm socket, and our wiring tool. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to strip the end of this wire and we're going to attach an end so we can attach that to the box. Then we'll cut our wire to the length and attach it to the body. Try to get all of the copper inside of there. Then we're going to crimp our end on. So on the back side of here, we have a terminal that says ground. So we're gonna go ahead and use a Phillips head to unscrew that. Then we can insert our new end in there and then tighten that back up. So two things to note, since we are installing this under the seat, we want it to face so you can access and adjust the settings while it's under there. Also, you want to make sure that we have our ground wire hooked up before you apply any power to it. So since we're in the process of doing this ground wire, we want to make this as short as possible. So we're going to go ahead and kind of eye that up, and then we'll cut this to a length, attach an eyelet on the end of it, and then get that mounted underneath that nut. So the next step, we're gonna pop this panel off on the passenger side so we can pass a wire through this section. So we're gonna use a flathead screwdriver and just push it in there. And once we have this panel off, we're gonna poke a hole through this foam in here so we can send our power wire through. So now that we have that cover off, we're gonna poke a hole through this foam and send our power wire through. Next, we're going to open our hood so we can accept the power wire through the firewall. So now that we poked a hole through the foam out the other side, we're going to go ahead and fish our wire through. So now that we have our power wire pulled through, we're going to cut it, put in our fuse holder, and then we're going to put a terminal in the end. So first you want to measure from the battery, get a good idea of the length that you want, and then we're going to cut that. So we're going to need to strip both ends of this short wire that we cut off. So on the one end, we're going to attach a terminal ring. This is going to attach to the battery side. Now the other side, we're going to unscrew this here. Then we're going to feed our wire through. So we're going to slide that whole section out. We'll put this little rubber grommet on there. Then we're going to use a 3mm Allen key. We're going to unscrew this set screw. That way we can place our wire inside of there. And then we're going to tighten that back up to secure it. Once that's secured, we can go ahead and slide that little collar all the way back up and then screw that end back on. Now we're going to do the same thing for the other side. We'll shave some of the sheathing off. We're going to unscrew this end. Place that on. Slide our little grommet on. Once that's set, we can slide this back up and close that, and then you can attach that right there. Now at this point in time, I'm not going to hook it up to the battery because we still have to run the wire all the way through the vehicle. So now that this is all assembled, we can mount this here. You can mount it right next to the battery. There's a little spot for it. I'm not going to hook the end up to the battery yet just because we have to run the wire all the way through the Jeep. This eventually will feed over to there. So next step, we have to get this wire over to the amp. So we're going to go down through the dash, over the center console, and over to that. So we're going to start off by pushing this back through here. And we're just going to feed this down. It's going to come out somewhere at some point. Oh, yeah. So next step, we're gonna have to peel back the carpet so we can send it through the footwell and the center console. So you're gonna need to remove these nuts down here. Those usually just spin off by hand. And then once you get those out, you can peel the carpet back just enough that we can feed this wire behind it. So we're gonna take the end of our wire, we're gonna go all the way under the center console, right back here, and it should drop out the other side. So now we're gonna go ahead and just tuck our wire back here underneath this carpet, and then we'll put the carpet back. Put our nuts back on. So we're just gonna peel this section back here. We can go ahead and just feed our wire underneath there. So next you're gonna choose a location to mount your base level controller. You can mount this anywhere in the Jeep, however, we're gonna mount it right on the dash. So we're gonna have to take the dash apart so we can access the 12 volt on the cigarette lighter. So to begin removing the center dash, we're gonna pull out on this, and then we're gonna unplug this. So there's a red lock on the back that you're gonna wanna release. Then we can push down on this clip and disconnect that. That's the red lock right there, and then the tab is right here that you're gonna press down on. Once we have that off, there's a screw in here that we're gonna remove so we can take this vent section off. That's gonna be a 7mm socket. We'll pull that screw out and save that for later. After you get this section pulled up a little bit, we can go ahead and detach this lower section. And once we get this off, then we can disconnect everything from behind. So now that we have the panel off, we're ready to tap into the cigarette lighter wire. So we're gonna tap into the hot wire, which is a blue wire with a pink trace. And then we're gonna run that down to the amp through the dash. So we're gonna use one of those blue clips again. And we're just gonna tap into this. So we're gonna go around the wire, feed our amp wire into that, and you want to make sure that both wires are in there correctly, and then we're going to go ahead and splice that and close our connection. So now we're going to fish our amp wire down through the dash, hopefully out of the bottom, so we can go under the carpet with it. And there she is. So then we're going to feed our wire all the way through. Then we're going to do the same thing we did with our power wire. We're just going to go under the carpet here. We're probably going to have a lot of slack. You can cut that short, or you can bundle it up and zip tie it. Anyway, we're just going to tuck this back in there, move on to our next step. So while this panel's out, we're going to mount our base level controller to it. So we're just going to make some marks, and then we'll drill some holes and install the provided screws. So now that you have your holes pre-drilled, you're ready to put your dash back together. So we're going to reconnect all of our connections. We're going to need to get this panel underneath of the vent section. And we can get it up, push back in, and then we can push our vent back in. and then reinstall our 7mm screw. After that, we can put our window switch back in. And then we can attach our base level controller. So now that we have our controller mounted, we're gonna run our wire down through here and through the carpet. So we're gonna go ahead, pop this piece off here. Then we're gonna use the supplied aux cable. So after you've pulled your wire through, you can go ahead and bundle up the excess. So we're gonna go ahead and put that wire tie back on there. Now you can leave this rest just right down here. You can tuck it up in there. There's a couple of options. And then we're just gonna run this along with all the other wires right down around here and run it to our amp. So now we're ready to wire our box up. First, we're gonna start with our speaker wires. So we're gonna take our little terminals. We're gonna cut these to the length that we need. Then we're gonna strip the ends and then we'll get those attached. So we're gonna start with our left side. Now we're gonna split our wires in two. So now that we have our wire ends stripped, we're ready to install them in this plug. Now you can see on this plug there's a negative side and a positive side. So we made the blue our positive, so we're gonna start with that first. We're just gonna insert that into there, and then we're gonna use a tiny Phillips head screwdriver to tighten that up. Same thing with the other side. We're gonna insert our wire into there. Once those are both tight and secure, we can go ahead and plug that into our box. Now since this is the left side, we're gonna go ahead and plug it into the top one that's for the left. Now we're ready to do the other side. Same thing, we're gonna cut our excess off. Then we'll split our wires. We're gonna start with our positive side. Go ahead and insert that. I'll tighten it up. Then once we have that on, we can plug that back into our box. We can take our aux cable from our remote base. We can plug that in. And then we can get started on the back side. So we're ready to wire up the battery wire and the amp remote wire. So we're gonna go ahead and do the same thing. We're gonna cut these to the length that we need them. Get rid of the excess. And we're gonna go ahead and strip the end. Once we have that off, go ahead and attach our spade terminal. Once that connection is secure, we can go ahead and loosen up our center pin, and then we can insert the remote wire into there, and then tighten that terminal back up. Now we can do the same thing for our battery wire. So now that we have our amp all wired up, we're ready to mount it to the floor of the vehicle. Now you're most likely going to do this with the seat in the vehicle, so you want to make sure that you're sliding it back and forth, and then it's not contacting the amp at all. So now we're going to take our 4 screws, and you can actually just screw these straight into the floor through the carpet. So we're almost ready to install our Neo-Pod. We still have to install our speaker, of course. However, we're gonna check under the seat to make sure that there's nothing that's gonna come in contact with this pod. So we have our seat out here. We're gonna disconnect this harness off of here and basically remove this bracket so we can clear over the Neo-Pod. Now you can do this with the seat in the vehicle. However, we took it out just to make it a little easier. So we're gonna go ahead and pinch this right here and wiggle that out. So we're gonna use a T30 Torx to take these two screws out of here. So with that bracket removed, you should have plenty of clearance underneath the seat. If you do need to remove any of these, you can always just zip tie them out of the way. We're gonna zip tie this up and out of the way and then get started on the box. So now we have our Neo-Pod on the table, ready to start assembling it. The first step, we're gonna take our grommet and insert it through the hole in the side. So next we're gonna take our thick speaker wire that came with our Kicker Subwoofer and we're gonna install that through the grommet and pull that through. So now that we have our wires pulled through, we're gonna separate these and then we're gonna go ahead and strip the ends off. So now we're ready to wire up our subwoofer and mount it in the box. The first thing, we're gonna take it, flip it upside down. Now this is recommended to wire for 4 ohms, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a small piece of wire and we're gonna go ahead and connect from the positive to the negative on the opposite side. And then we're gonna do the same thing for this. We're gonna go positive, and then we'll go to our negative side. So now we're ready to take our subwoofer. We're gonna flip it upside down. Make sure it fits nicely in this box. Get all of our wires to tuck in there. And then next we wanna center this in the box. So we're gonna line that up pretty even. And then we'll get our screws, screw that in. So we have our 8 Phillips head screws. We're gonna use our drill to screw them in. So now that that's mounted in there, go ahead and install it in the Jeep. So now that our box is fully assembled, we're ready to install it on the floor. At this point in time, it's a good idea to check for leaks. So with everything plugged in, you can go ahead and fire this thing up, check for any air leaks. If you do have any leaks around here, you can tighten those screws up. If you feel any air coming out of there, you can apply some hot glue or wax. However, we feel pretty confident that our box is good to go, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. So now you're ready to install your Neo-Pod. If you decided to keep your seat in, you're gonna slide it in through the back, making sure that all of your wiring harnesses are free and clear. If you need to move them, zip tie them out of the way, this is a good time. You're gonna slide it in through here, wiggle it on through, and then we're gonna set it in place. This wiring is gonna wrap around. Eventually we're gonna send that under the carpet over to the amp. So to mount our box to the floor, we're gonna slide it up and over towards the driver's seat as much as we can. We're gonna use our screws that are provided. They're self-tapping. You need a 3/8 socket. So with the front screw in, we're gonna center the back in between the 2 legs, and then we're gonna get our screws started. You wanna make sure that there's no wiring underneath when we install our screws. So now that we have our box mounted, we're ready to run our wiring over to the amp. So it's pretty simple. You can just tuck it up and around the center console and kind of just bring that around. We can go all the way up here and then send that over to our amp. Now that our wiring is by our amp, we're gonna go ahead and split these, pull those apart, and we're gonna strip the ends off and we're gonna attach these terminal ends on them. So now that both of those are tight, we're ready to attach them to the amp. First, we're gonna undo our screws, go ahead and insert our terminals, and then we'll tighten them up. Now you can take this wire and just hide the excess. And last but not least, before we get ready to fire this system up, we're going to connect our battery cable to our battery. So we're going to use a 10mm socket to remove one of these nuts and get it connected. So now that the whole system's wired up, you're just about ready to turn it on. One thing I'd recommend is to turn all of these settings down to 0. That way you can fine tune it as you go. However, that wraps up our review and install. For more videos like this, check us out at ExtremeTerrain.com.